podcast where we're going to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake and sort of compare it to the original Final Fantasy VII. And let's start by introducing everybody that's here today and sort of saying a little bit about yourself. So we'll start with Goose.
Hello, my name is Goosewine. I'm from the Netherlands, and my first ever introduction to Final Fantasy VII was the original in '79 on a Christmas day. Played it for a whole Christmas day with the family, and it was awesome. And we're going to talk about it today, so hell yeah.
That sounds really cool for Christmas Day. Okay, Martini?
Hi, I'm Martini, and this is all new to me, but that's going to be fine. I'm a variety streamer and a musician, and how I know Final Fantasy and what I know about Final Fantasy is just I watched somebody play through it, through the remake. I have never played the original, and just so everyone knows, it's not like I entered with the remake. I saw like Advent Children, the film, but it was like when I was 14 or something, and that was my first introduction. I understood nothing, so it was a bit of a roller coaster. But yeah, I didn't play the game myself. I watched somebody play through it. So I guess that's my unique look on the issue. So yeah, there you go.
Hi, I'm Tomato. Yeah, I'm a pretty old school gamer, I guess. Like a lot of people, I started with Final Fantasy VII. It was my first proper RPG, JRPG. And I've been a pretty big fan of the series since. I've gone back and played all of them and replayed them several times and so on and so forth. Arguably, I'm coming from the more pessimistic view that newer games are less to my liking. And there are some elements that come through that in the remake, but definitely lots of things to love. Lots of things to love as well.
Cool. So my first question is starting with Goose. How do you actually feel about Final Fantasy VII Remake?
My God, it was everything I wanted. Like, I love the fact that it remained its charm, because I was really afraid looking back at Final Fantasy 13 and 15, the characters in that were kind of bland and edgy, and I didn't quite like them. So I was kind of afraid that this game would be not as charismatic as it used to be, like in the original. I just adore that game. And yeah, that's just a lot of things that I like about this game, like the combat system for one. No flaws, and I really did like it. The music is still good, but the thing that got me most was the characters, that they're still so likable and not at all, in my opinion at least, not bland or something, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I'm really happy about the remake for sure.
Did you have expectations before the release? Had you watched stuff?
The thing is, I've only watched like the initial announcement trailer that the game would be arriving, that it would actually come in existence, because I never expected it. Like I think Sony showed us a tech demo at E3 2009 or something. And ever since that dropped, I was like, they're never gonna give it to us. It's not happening. You're just gonna steamroll with Final Fantasy 14, and that is all that is all the Final Fantasy that we're gonna get. But that was like my first introduction to Final Fantasy VII Remake. Yeah.
And Tomato as well. Did you watch anything before the release?
I believe, I do recall the age of, was it the PlayStation 3 tech demo, which obviously got people talking about the remake as a concept years and years ago. And then I watched the primary, like the main, I think it's 2 release trailers. One was a gameplay one was the theatrical trailer kind of thing. And obviously there was the literal demo on the PlayStation, which I played. But I tried to stay relatively spoiler free, which I'm usually pretty content to not do. But, I thought I might as well make the most of this experience because, we're only getting it you only get to do this once, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
Martini, am I correct in thinking that you hadn't watched any of the trailers or any of the pre-release stuff for this game? It's just Advent Children?
Yeah, because I didn't really care. Because I mean, if the game, let me finish. If the game would be on PC, I would be all on it. But because it's PS4 exclusive, I don't have a PS4.
Yeah.
I don't have money to get one, so I wasn't really interested. But when one of my favorite streamers was streaming it, I got invested. After like I don't know 30 minutes or something, I was just all in, and yeah.
So if they did port it to the PC, you'd be pretty content to get
for
it.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know now because I've already seen it, but when
but playing a game yourself is still a very different experience than just viewing it.
Yeah, for me though, I feel like the story was the biggest thing for me. So what I was doing when I was watching it, I was watching it on YouTube for the most part because I just don't have that amount of time to just watch it on Twitch when it's happening.
Yeah.
And what I was doing was just skipping mostly through the battles, like the big battles, like what is it called? The House of Doom or something? Sorry.
Doom House.
The Hell House.
Yeah.
Madhouse. I don't know.
Madhouse. Okay. Yeah. So like that one was cool, and there were some others like Sephiroth and stuff like that. But for the most part, I felt like it's just combat. It's gonna get kind of repetitive, at least from a perspective of a viewer. So I kind of just went with the story for the most part. So yeah, and it's a game about the story for me and the characters and the world as well, but not really about the gameplay that much. The whole materia thing. I don't really like games with a lot of things that you can like. How would I even call it? Like
slot in, reslot.
Yeah, a lot of numbers. Like it's just I just want to play the game. I don't like this. Give me a weapon that I know is a bit better than the last one. Sure, I'll use it. But to like tinker with it and figure out the numbers, I really don't need to do that. So, especially with the materia, it looked kind of difficult to understand. But then again, I wasn't really trying that much, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Getting into the gameplay aspect of things, the game gives you options of, classic, easy, and normal mode. And then when you've finished it, you get a hard mode.
Mm-hmm.
Which gameplay style, Goose and Tomato, starting with Goose, which gameplay did you play the game with, and how did you find it?
I immediately got into regular mode. I haven't even touched easy or classic. I haven't even tried those. So that's still on my to-do list. I know, it's unbelievable. But
did it start with easy?
No, I know. I should, but no. The combat, I felt that it was like very easy to get into. And I also felt like the gameplay was very rewarding for when you knew what the enemy's weaknesses were. And I found that every encounter, learning how to stagger certain enemies was really fun for me. And yes, you could just play the game like smash the attack melee button all the time and every now and then heal. But I felt that figuring all the tactics out was not really challenging, but it was really rewarding for me, at least.
Yeah. Tomato, which mode did you go with?
Well, I tried classic mode and normal mode on the demo, and so I just went with normal mode for the actual main game because it felt more interesting than classic mode. And I mean, I like a bit of difficulty in a game, so there's not really usual call for me to go for easy modes. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people.
Can I say
so-
something?
Oh yeah, Martini, of course you can. I wasn't moving on.
What's the difference between the classic mode and normal?
That's a very good point, because I was about to say I thought that the classic and the easy modes, I was a bit confused and thought that they were very similar. I played it on easy because I always go for story over fighting, because you know that I suck at fighting much. But do you guys, either of you, can you remember the differences between the classic and the easy?
As
I have
far
no
as I
idea.
remember, the button sort of mashing element of it, where you charge your ATB gauge with, is it the square button to do regular attacks?
Yeah.
That is all performed
Yeah.
for you.
Mhm.
And in order to make that more viable, they've adjusted a bunch of the enemy stats so that you don't. I think it actually genuinely makes the enemies less HP soaks, as it were.
So,
as people have mentioned some of the bosses can be.
If you're playing classic mode, do you still get to parry and counter and dodge? Because I found that was very awesome in the regular mode, that you could actually do that.
Honestly, I can't recall too much because
No, I feel
was
like
in
it
the
was
demo and I
important.
wasn't quite clicking with the battle system when I played the demo. Whereas somewhere through the actual main game, I got it.
So yeah, Tomato, how did you find the form of combat that you chose? And can you compare it to any of the previous games? Because they had quite a lot of options in this one.
It's an interesting one because I found it quite engaging combat at first, but I haven't tried hard mode yet, it's worth noting, but I found it quite rewarding, like doing the different things on different enemies and so on and so forth. But basically, the game pretty much outright told you to use assess on everything, and so I pretty much went that route, and then it kind of went, yeah, use this, okay, do this. So by the end, I won't lie, it was a bit boring, but I haven't gone through any of the extra battles yet that could give me that itch kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
that's the you go ahead, Martini, sorry.
Okay. Did any one of you play Final Fantasy 15 before this? I'm wondering what's the difference between the combat there and in the remake, because they are a little bit similar, but I hope very different, because I hated the Final Fantasy 15 combat.
In my opinion, Final Fantasy 15's combat is super hack and slash. Like, you could just literally turn off your brain and you will be all right in that game. And that game, for me, the gameplay aspect, the combat, that was just not satisfying. It was not
Yeah, also
rewarding.
the dodges and stuff. Like I seem to have like hold the dodge button for a big portions of the battles in Final Fantasy 15.
Keep on rolling, babe.
To even be able to like attack at some point. It seemed like there's so many enemies coming at me at once, and I didn't have a breathing room for anything, and I just had to dodge all the time and wait for the bar that lets you do the
Special attacks.
combo attacks or whatever.
Yeah.
Do that and stuff. I was so confused. I mean, probably I was playing it wrong somehow, but also I don't know. It felt very wrong.
Yeah, what I said
think
earlier, it's just
different.
not very good.
In the remake, it is definitely different. A lot of people say it's there's a big argument about whether an ARPG like that should be the natural evolution of the ATB system back from original Final Fantasy VII, and it's a kind of neither here nor there. It's just fundamentally different, and some people will enjoy it and some people won't, I think.
Yeah.
I know some people genuinely do not like games which require hand-eye coordination, for example.
Yeah.
Which you'll need
see
more
that.
of when you're blocking and dodging and all like that.
So I can tell you this though. I know that I'm gonna probably get some heat, especially from people who enjoy Final Fantasy, and I'm kind of the outsider a little bit. But one of the big reasons why I don't play Final Fantasy games, at least the old ones, is because of the turn-based combat. I just can't get over it.
Ethan!
I hate it. I'm sorry, I hate it. And especially also with the random encounters. I mean, I don't know how many of these games have random encounters and stuff, but I just
All
don't
of
like
them.
that. And I can safely say that seeing at least seeing, I haven't played it, but seeing Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat system made me very interested in trying it out. Like I probably wouldn't play through the whole game now that I've seen everything, but I would definitely want to try it and see, because it seemed interesting and fun to like mess around with that. So
yeah, so one of the things I was going to say about that is this game, to me, it did have quite a different sort of combat style to what I was used to for Final Fantasies. So like it had the staggering. Did staggering come into game 13? Maybe Final Fantasy
12, I
was it
think.
yeah, probably 12. And then it had the weapon abilities that you could sort of add them up. No, the weapon abilities, and then there was the other weapon thing where you like
the point system.
Weapon
yeah, the point
Yeah.
system.
Mhm.
So it's like pulled a whole bunch of things from previous Final Fantasy games, and then the actual combat system as well, where you've got Punisher mode, an operator mode, and where you can go into that slow motion whilst you're working out what the hell you're going to do. I found it really nice and quite a different, like quite a change. So I really enjoyed the fact that they've pulled that together. I think a lot of people get angry with it, but on that note of the whole, like the ATB charges and stuff, Goose,
Yeah.
did you fight with a particular character? Like, did you find yourself sticking with Cloud or like moving around, or what?
Martini, you and Barrett, man. I don't know what it is, but you have a huge crush on that man, don't you?
oh, you just don't like him. That's why.
No, I'm sorry. Okay, but to answer H-Bomb's question, I switched around quite a lot during the battle. Like, but I would mostly play with Tifa because she is like super fast, and because she is fast, her ATB bar fills up really quick, so you can just spam abilities all the way. But I mainly played Tifa, and I couldn't stand playing as Barrett. I don't know what it is. I just couldn't solve the problems.
I mean, weird. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I did sort of fall back on Cloud a lot because it always autos with Cloud. But I did love playing as Tifa. I found her quite fun to work with, and yeah, also didn't really use Barrett.
So do you not like Barrett as a character or his combat?
I like original Barrett. I did not like.
What's the difference?
There's quite a bit of difference.
The voice actor or the things he says?
Well, the script it's this hard one to analyze because there's obviously a lot more of it, and it's largely like a lot more in depth. So he arguably has a lot more depth to his character now. But at the same time, it's also voice acted. And I mean, some people have been making the Mr. T comparison when he's been given some of the sillier lines of dialogue.
Yeah,
which
definitely.
I can see
be a
that.
bit much for some people, I think.
And the problem, or I don't know if this is a problem, but in my opinion, Barrett gets way more interesting in like the second and third act of the original also. Like, I didn't even like him in the original version. Like, the first part, he was just this rowdy guy all the time who shouted at everyone. And it was just not that interesting. And he all, like Tomato said, he gets all the comic relief lines, which is fine. You have to have that guy in your party, but it's like it's him all the time.
I don't think they're comic relief. It's just the way that he says them. Seems like he like shouts at everyone and like I can totally understand why people don't like him. And to be honest, I can't tell you why I do like him. At first, I also didn't like him, but at some point, I don't know. Maybe it was
it the
streamer that I was watching who like.
I actually didn't mind that scene.
Yeah,
I thought that was one of the few scenes they did in a lot more justice with the script. Instead of some of his lines were the more hammy in the if you have to look at the whole thing, he had the like cheesier end of the spectrum.
Yeah, but the things he was saying, like, you know, the planet is dying and stuff like that, like, it was heavy stuff. And it was a good script, I feel like, but the way he conveyed it, yeah, it was a little bit weird. Sometimes he like shouted out of a thin air. It's like, you know, when you have anime where certain characters at some points where they're usually very you know, stoic and stuff, they just turn into like the comic relief at that certain point, and then they go back to being stoic. It felt like he was like that for the most part of it, but the things he was saying, like, those things were pretty good. It's just the way that he said them was just like, okay, like, I don't know. You're trying to cheese this a little bit. I understand, because Barrett is a little bit of a cheesy guy, it seems. I mean, I don't know, never played the original, but
I
he
think
felt
it was,
like
he's very much portrayed in the original as like a lot more hot-headed at the early parts of the game. In fact, there's a scene immediately after where the remake ends where he kind of has a moment of humility, and Cloud he goes, fine, I'm not going to be the leader, Cloud should be the leader. And up until that point in the original game, he is a bit of a hothead, and that's obviously, I think the shoutingness is just a translation of that. And sometimes it works when it's appropriate, but sometimes it feels like yelling in the middle of otherwise normal.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that's I think you hit the nail on the head, yeah. Because he just suddenly starts screaming at people and like, what are you doing? Like, everyone else is having a normal conversation, and you just started screaming all of a sudden and yelling at people for maybe valid reasons, but like, that's not how humans like talk to each other. I understand it's a video game and stuff like that, but yeah, I totally can get behind why that was kind of weird to some people. Yeah, for sure.
But you just gave a very good explanation why you do like Barrett.
Well,
good job.
On that note, Martini, because you hadn't seen the original game or played the original game, were there parts of this game that didn't make sense to you and you had to sort of look into? So did you have things like, you know, when Cloud has sort of flash forwards, flash back kind of episodes every now and then, when you were
he rubbed his head a lot.
Yeah, when he rubbed his head a lot,
and he doesn't say anything to the rest. Like, I'm fine.
Did that make sense to you, Martini?
I mean, it didn't. That's like, what did you expect me to say?
The game explained itself? Because the reason that I'm intrigued about your view of this is because it makes sort of sense to people that have played the original, but there are a lot of people playing this remake that might not have played the original. Like, you have seen this.
I feel like, though, that it's really not a problem, though, that people don't understand, because I feel like that's the big part of it. Like, I understand that you guys who played the original kind of understand most of it. I know that there's some stuff that even you guys are maybe like figuring out what it might be.
About.
But for the most part, you probably know. But I feel like it's not a bad thing to not understand. I feel like it actually, because it raises a lot of questions, but they're either answered or just it makes you intrigued for the next part. Like, I'm very intrigued for the next part, and it also made me look up stuff from the original to like figure out what the hell was going on. Because of course I don't understand, but I don't feel like it's a bad thing, you know. I feel like it just made me interested in the rest of the world and in the lore and in the characters even more. Like, of course they could have handled it a little bit better, but then again, like, we're probably gonna learn a lot more in the second game, hopefully, about all these you know, the flashbacks and stuff like that. All that, yeah. If you're asking about Sephiroth and stuff, like, I feel like anyone who heard about Final Fantasy knows who Sephiroth is. He's like the most iconic boss character ever. I mean, I didn't know specifics. I remembered him also from Advent Children, and how cool he is. So I kind of knew what was going on there a little bit, but yeah, I just don't feel like being confused is a bad thing, especially in Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, this is
Okay,
still
yeah.
part one. I mean, it is like pivotal that
Like,
it
if
should
everything
be a
would be-
secret.
If everything would be answered, like,
Why
what
would you
we
play
have
part
to-
2?
Yeah.
True. So, Goose, did you think that the flashes were? Did you think that they were logical? At least, did they make sense to you?
In a way, yes, and it made me very wary of what we're gonna go into for the next parts. Or well, excited and wary, because I, for one, am very excited that is the slight possibility that there's gonna be some different paths that we can take. Maybe I'm very excited about that, but I was not really confused by any of the cutscenes or the flashbacks or the flash forwards. I found them pretty logical, in my opinion. Yeah.
And then on to Tomato. They started showing some Zack story in this. Do you think that that's going to become a bigger thing in this remake? Because I mean, how much Zack was shown in the original, really?
So in the original game, he's not. He's referenced on the first disc several times in passing, I guess, and he's explicitly not seen until I think it's a flashback on disc 2, and when you dive into Cloud's head and sort through all of his memories, as well as you can go to the Nibble Mansion and get an extra little flashback there.
Nibelheim.
I guess I'm neither here nor there on it, because either way I knew what was coming. I know who he is, so it's the big plot twists that are coming in 7 Remake aren't plot twists to me. It makes
Do
me
you
curious.
think they'll change them?
There's a very good chance they could. I basically read that was that topic I linked you, where someone on there was saying that some of the devs themselves have left. They're very much waiting on reception to the first part. See how they continue.
That's what I expected, yeah.
Because obviously there are very significant moments, especially what people are referring to as, I think it's like the last 5% of the game, that wildly deviates from the original game. And we don't really know where that's going to go. And yeah, I think if obviously reception was really poor to it, they would basically try and stick to OG game. With maybe a bit more Zack-ness in. I know there's a huge following for Zack, thanks to Crisis Core.
I don't understand that at all.
It's a funny one, I think, because I know a couple of people who are really big fans of Crisis Core, but it's never because I don't think it's much on the gameplay. It is purely the story of Zack that they're really like.
Yeah. So Martini, you said that you had gone through, you looked through other stuff previous, you looked through some of the sort of lore of Final Fantasy and things like that when you got confused. What sort of things did you actually go to look at and read up on?
Oof, I mean, there was a lot. Basically, I wanted to, at first, just wanted to look up the cutscenes and stuff. Like this, I wanted to know the story of the original, because as many have said, we can go anywhere right now. So I just wanted to know how the original, like what was going to happen and stuff like that, because the problem is I might never be able to replay that again. Or like, I can replay it, of course, but as I said, I don't really enjoy
you will probably not get to experience it like in the remake, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, probably. I mean, I don't know. And no one knows, but yeah. That's what I assume, that at least a little bit they're gonna go somewhere else. Who knows? Yeah. So I wanted to search for that, but that was very difficult to find because I found some like a YouTube video about cutscenes, just cutscenes, and it was like 14 hours long or something, and I was like,
oh,
fuck that! I'm not gonna watch that. So I just went to like learn tidbits about a little bit about the red character, the
Mhm.
dog. I wanted to learn about who Cloud actually is, and his backstory, and just like what happens basically in the story. And I was just amazed how Cloud is one of the, how would I say this, is one of the characters that is basically you can build a whole story about him, how much lore he has, and that's
Hmm.
pretty much what they have done, of course. But yeah, I've never seen a character like that that goes through so many things that like
Layers.
shape him. Yeah, and so many layers that he has. It was mind opening at one point. And to be honest, I the question that I was left with was just how the hell, like, what are they gonna do with it? How are they gonna change it? Because I felt like all the things that happen in the original kind of has to happen. From what I've heard, they have to happen. So I
Mhm.
was just wondering, like, how can you even change this? Like, I'm open to it. I just don't understand
How
how
they're
can you
gonna
like
accomplish
avoid
this?
some of these things, because one action leads to another and that leads to the end. So like,
Hmm.
are we just gonna time travel? Are we gonna be alternate reality? What's gonna happen here? Like, I don't know. I'm intrigued though. I am
Okay.
intrigued.
Good. Moving back to the sort of game mechanics, side quests have become quite a big thing in more recent Final Fantasies. This is for Goose and Tomato. How do you feel about the amount of, like, the style of side quests that we get now and
Ooh.
the amount?
For me, I really liked the mini game quests. Like I love those in these newer Final Fantasies. I really dig those. But
For
the
example,
big the very big amount of quests were just go fetch this
Mm.
and bring it back, and you're gonna get rewarded. I don't like that, not at all.
if you play MMOs, do you not like it? Those are, I mean,
That's different. It's
is
it's
it?
I think it's, yeah, I think what Goose is
Setting up
saying is
expectations.
how
Yeah, exactly,
you
Martini.
have, you choose to play one type of game for that style of thing, but then when
I
you're
know what you
playing
mean.
this kind of game, you're choosing it like this is quite a big story, epic story type thing. You don't really want
The
that
thing
as
was
well.
what was kind of confusing doing the side quest. Like the game is very linear of itself, and they just throw in side quest almost as a filler. And I was kind of confused. Just let me walk the path that you set out for me, and I'll be
But
fine. Do some mini
can
games
you
here and there.
can you not do that though? Like,
I
can you
could,
not
Yeah, it's not
ignore
like
it?
you
but
have to do the side quests.
and it's the side quests themselves are boring, but I did them because I just wanted to see what they were about at first, and I just really like to be in the world, and I really like the gameplay.
Hmm.
But the side quests themselves, what they involved and entailed, that was just not exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the
Okay.
guy that you get the materia from, the kid.
Yeah.
Chad,
Do those extra things.
Chad, my
Is that
name
his
is
name? I've
Chad.
forgotten
you
already.
think so? I don't know. That's
Chattery, I think, or something like
The
that.
kid
I
with
have
his,
no
with his
idea.
VR
What-
headset that
yeah.
you go in order to get some summons. Tomato, did you like him as a character and that extra bit of materia?
I mean, as a character, he felt kind of generic.
Yeah.
He was
It
just
could have
there.
put any anime character, and I wouldn't have noticed a difference. In terms of the content, it's kind of good that he gave you little challenges to do during battle. I was a bit torn on like the VR stuff though, because on one hand, what I expect from a Final Fantasy game is going out of your way to level up and then find the big super monsters and fighting them via these side quests. What instead we've got, as Goose mentioned, sort of MMO style side quests, and all of the monsters, all of those things are in the VR stuff, which on one hand, it's a very good excuse as to why there aren't giant weapons running around the slums of Midgard. On the other hand, it feels kind of like really easy. Just we could reshade 100 enemies and just drop endless VR missions in, and which is it's an odd one because I do really quite enjoy the combat. So
it's just so uneventful. Like if you get a new summon, it would always feel epic in previous Final Fantasy games, and here they're just in this battle simulating arena thing. So that's just kind of meh.
Yeah.
Like the battles themselves are fun, but
yeah,
it's a pretty like bland mechanic at the end of the day. We've seen monster arenas in computer games before.
And we also have the Colosseum, which serves the same purpose. We already have a Colosseum, so why do we also need to have a battle VR thing?
One interest, like as a side note on the general mini games, I'm actually a bit surprised they didn't go further with some of them, because obviously we got the squats and the pull-ups thing.
Oh god,
which arguably it didn't seem that rewarding for the amount of pain you have to go through to get that 100%.
True.
But like I was actually a bit disappointed. We obviously had the motorbike mechanic. So honestly, I kind of expected there at some point to have like an underground biking ring, for example, and for them to put a bunch of stuff there. Or so we have the kind of rhythm game in the Honeybee Inn. I was expecting to be able to go back there and do a bunch of silly dance-offs.
The dance-offs, yeah.
You know, I'm not saying that would necessarily be a great content, because arguably 2 bike missions in the game aren't...
That was enough for me.
They could have done the bike missions a lot better, and I think if they'd put more effort in, there might have been more inclination to put in an underground side quest biking...
I do think they did that on purpose to have that old feeling of the original, like the kind of stiffness around that whole mini biking sequence.
But it did come off as kind of a bit cumbersome. The two, there's only real 2 segments that you use that bike, isn't it?
Yeah, and that character, the big motorbike.
What's it? Roche?
Oh my lord! Yeah, Roche.
I love him.
You love him.
The moves that he did on that motorbike were insane.
He's weird. I love him.
I think the internet loves him. Actually.
I think that the creator of Kingdom Hearts also produced this game, and he was like, I need to have my boss battle, and Roche is like a character straight out of Kingdom Hearts, the franchise. It's so obvious.
Yeah, it does feel it's odd. I thought it was a bit of a nod to the fact there's a line in the original game where I think it's Reno or someone at Shinra says, like, everyone who joins soldiers a bit mad. Like, you have to be kind of insane to be an A rank level soldier.
Oh, really?
And I thought that was kind of like him being as extreme as he was as a character was kind of a nod to that. But in the end, I just found him a bit obnoxious, and he comes out of nowhere. It's an excuse to have a motorcycle.
I didn't mind him that much.
I don't think there was he didn't obviously return and add loads to the plot later on. It's there to ride a bike and have a sword fight on a bike.
I just really enjoyed all the combat scenes, and especially the bike scenes in Advent Children. So I was very happy when they brought something of that back, and I wanted there to be more, because like the silly stuff that they can do with that bike, like
it's so cool.
Physics do not apply to that bike at all, or that soldier, but like I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. So just give me more.
And then I was going to come on to the voices used, because before this game came out, people had seen some of the trailers, and we'd all learned that one of the characters was usually a YouTube creator, and was it Aerith? Was it Aerith that's a YouTube creator?
I have no idea.
Yeah, she was a fan of the original game.
And so people started questioning if they wanted to listen to the American artists or if they wanted to have the French or the German or the original Japanese voice acting and just have subtitles on. Did any of you question any of the voice actors' choices, or did you think about listening in a different language?
I did not mind the voice actors at all. I thought it was well suited. But I also never heard about this whole YouTube thing.
Or did you?
I didn't. So I don't know what that is about.
Honestly, I'm someone who usually finds a lot of voice acting in a lot of games it doesn't add much to me. And in fact, all it takes is me to find one voice kind of a bit annoying for it to like really detract. But I actually honestly didn't mind. I only occasionally noticed, and I think it was because there's a few cheesy lines in there. Like Barrett has a few cheesy one-liners and things. That's when I kind of went, ugh, and that's not. I don't know if that's the script or the voice being given. It's not really anything on the voice actor, really. Yeah.
Did you? I don't know who to send this to actually, but did any of you find that Cloud's character had some better one-liners than his previous version?
Yeah, he was so super cheeky now every now and then.
Yeah.
He was like being rough and he stabbed sometimes, little stabby stabs. I really like that about this the remake. I'm pro remake Cloud all the way.
Yeah,
I think he's way more interesting than the original one. But maybe that's just because of the fact that Cloud he's just not interesting in the first act anyway. So
I think they did a very good job of nailing his kind of spikiness and indifference, but like he's obviously quite reluctant. He obviously has the connection with Tifa, and she's obviously who kind of coaxes him to be less like that in both OG and remake. So it's quite a good translation of Cloud, I'd say.
No.
And
if I can,
sorry, Martini, go on.
If I can just jump in, when you were asking me about if I was confused about something, I was mainly confused about Cloud and just like his relationship to others, and that like it helped with Aerith because you just meet her, and that's when you meet her. That's their first interaction. But with Tifa, if I didn't know at least a little bit about something about what is it, Niflheim or something?
Nibelheim, yeah.
Nibelheim, sorry. And stuff like that, I wouldn't really understand that they know each other and like what their relationship is. And especially now that I think about it again, I talked about Goose. Sorry, I talked about this with Goose, where there's the scene where Tifa has the cowboy outfit on.
Yeah.
I was just like, what the fuck is going on?
That is very weird.
It was so out of context, and just
I remember that from my initial playthrough. Like, what the hell is happening here?
That didn't explain anything. That just made it more confusing. Like, if that wasn't in there, I would have zero questions. But that actually made it worse. Like, I understand now because of the Nibelheim and stuff. So at least a little bit I understand. But that was so weird when I saw it. I was like, are we in a commercial, or is this a joke of some sort? What's going on? And then it was just gone, and nobody mentioned it. And what? What's going on here? So yeah,
it is a bit odd because I actually honestly thought, because they've obviously they've drawn some elements from later in the game and brought them in earlier, so they're now present in Midgar. I actually, with the amount they actually kind of did with foreshadowing there, I honestly, by the end, sort of expected them to do the actual Nibelheim flashback at some point when you were, say, in the Shinra Tower, because I thought it would be a bit weird for all of these new people.
Yeah.
That, for example, that very cowboy scene is not 20 minutes after where the remake ends is kind of explained. And that's kind of it. I don't know how I'd feel. Do you feel like you've been cut off too short, Martini?
I feel like it would fit in very well where they would just explain this. Either don't put it in at all, or just to explain it a little bit better. Like, I guess it wouldn't have, like, you don't have to give me the whole explanation, because I think that's probably gonna take some time to like properly explain what happened and stuff like that, and the whole scene. But just you just gave me Cowboy Tifa that's just crying atop of a dead person. That made zero sense. So just give me either give me a little bit more or give me a little bit less.
Okay.
Either one is good, but
Now, on the note of zero sense, there are 3 characters of Avalanche that in the original very much don't carry on in the game. That is Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse. And in this version,
just
we've still got a Wedge.
Wow, that's an interesting debate, really.
It is an interesting debate, and I'm glad you bring this up, because I
we
was
get a
reading the
scene
forum
where I think he's fighting magical fate ghosts, and
The original fanboys.
and then he you kind of fade to black, and you hear glass shattering, and it's did the fate ghost kill Wedge
Oh, you're saying that? Okay.
at the end? But which confused me a lot, because they implied that they saved him earlier.
Yeah.
But then they're also the things that aren't trying. They're apparently trying to save. I don't know. I honestly have no
They
idea.
want to stick to the original timeline. That is what the ghosts are for.
wasn't it
Why
about
did they save Wedge if they're trying to stick to the original timeline?
wasn't it about the plate falling on him?
Well,
No, that was earlier in the
thing.
game.
So in the original game, there's that whole scene where they're climbing up this pillar to stop the bomb exploding that Shinra have set, blaming Avalanche, saying it's them that have set it, because it's going to fall on all of that.
I mean, it's their own fault. Why are they called Avalanche? You know, it just makes sense that they would do something like this.
But the thing is, in the original Martini, all 3, Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse, die at that fight. They die. They're done. And in this version, they have kept Wedge alive. And I was wondering if any of you had any theories as to what Wedge might become in future parts.
I still kind of disagree that he's alive.
Okay.
I just don't know.
I thought Biggs was alive, because they show him the post-credit scene.
What happened to us?
I got the wrong way around.
Well, Biggs, Wedge is the guy with the cats, and he survived.
Yeah.
But then it implies he kind of, we don't know it. There's that fade to black thing again, and then in the credit scene, after the credits are rolling, there's a scene where Biggs is shown lying in a hospital bed, and also Jesse's gloves are present on the side of the.
I accidentally
confirmed
my credit.
Oh no!
So I actually haven't seen that.
Oh, sorry, I've spoiled the ending for you. Oh no,
it's your own fault.
That is my own fault. It's because it was 3 a.m. and I was sick of watching credits for an hour.
Oof.
Okay, so you're saying that all 3 of them might actually still be alive?
But we don't know whether any of that is alternate dimension stuff or fate. I honestly have no idea.
We don't know what it is.
So,
Can someone remind me what happened to Wedge? Because when you say fade to black, it doesn't really ring a bell.
What he was. He meets you in the Shinra building. Because you get a bit of avalanche like support in there, don't you? And he
is the president where he's like, I have come to help you, or
and it's Mayor Domino, is it?
Domo.
So he's there in the Shinra building during that stuff, and then the last scene I remember seeing him in is he's like saying, I'm gonna do well this time. I'm gonna do better this time. And then the fate ghosts appear and start like flying into him, and he's like trying to sort of push against them. And then the screen fades to black, and then you hear the sound of glass going like,
Pew.
Smash, and you just hear that.
Isn't that like the third time something like that happened to him though?
Yeah,
Before
like,
he
well,
was saving his cats,
Yeah.
and just suddenly something falls on him, and then you find him in a lab or something, just lying on the ground. Like, how the hell did he get there? Who put him there? Was it the ghosts? What happened to him? Like, why is he unconscious? He was very weird. His whole story was a little bit weird. Yeah, but I feel like killing him like that would be very weird. So I feel like he's gonna be back.
If you don't see somebody die on screen, then he's not dead.
Is that Kingdom
That's
Hearts?
just
But also,
Yeah,
if
that
they're
is
still
Kingdom Hearts
alive-
101.
If they are still alive, are they going to make them some kind of
Pizza?
potential side quest thing, or
I have no idea.
I think
Like,
if they're still alive,
I already had enough of them. I don't need to see them anymore.
You don't want to see Jesse?
well, this is the thing. Jesse had became such a bigger character than
Right.
he ever was.
But then if she dies off, that would be like that's not a good ending. But I don't know how to explain myself.
I mean, her
think a lot
ending
of
was
people are
super good.
saying
Yeah,
the
exactly, Martini.
emotional- It's the emotional impact of their deaths in the original
Indeed, yeah.
game. Even if you don't like the fact that they die, it's very important to Barrett, especially. But yeah, it's very important to the plot and the player. So, well, any big fan of the original is obviously going to be a bit tentative to changes to the original plot. But I always find, like, I know Marvel comics and loads of comic books and films do it all the time now. As Goose said, if you don't see the person die, they're probably coming back. But it's not like it loses a lot of stakes when you, oh, look, they're dead. No, they're not. Yes, they are. No, they're
I
not.
hate
Yes,
that.
they are.
I really like Jessie as a character, but I would feel cheated if she would be brought back. Like, she had a super cool death scene, and to just delete that would,
What's the purpose?
I would feel cheated.
Yeah.
Like, why?
I agree.
So just keep her dead.
Crossing my fingers, they're not gonna come back. Hell yeah.
Well, I bet we're all in agreement on that one. Moving on to the music. Goose, I believe you were a big. I mean, I think we're all big fans of the orchestral score that has been created for this. The beautiful music we have. Did any stand out in particular as your fave?
Ooh. Actually, this is where I started my initial playthrough. I booted up the game and I just listened to the prelude, like for the full, I think, 10 minutes is that track. And I wasn't crying or anything, but I had like this choked up feeling all the time, all the way through. So that is like one of my favorites. And the second one that I want to give a shout out to is the Turks theme. I thought that was really well done. So yeah, those are two of my favorites for sure.
Martini, do you know any of the tracks that stand out for you?
If anyone watches my starting soon scenes, I added in like 7 of them, maybe. 'Cause I really enjoyed them. So at least for a bit, I was like, I want to put in some Final Fantasy VII songs. So the ones that probably stand out for me the most are the Turks theme, the Honeybee, Airbuster, the Airbuster.
Oh yeah.
Hollow Skies, the ending song, that was super good. I really like that one. And the one I like the most is Due Recompense, which is a battle edit, but I'm not sure if
I have no idea what it is.
yeah, you would have to find that out because I can't really.
Nobody's gonna talk about stand up. I mean,
Which one's
also-
stand up?
That's the Honeybee.
the Honeybee Inn song.
Oh
I said
God,
that.
no! I tried to ignore that part as much as possible.
Really? Oh.
Tomato, can I ask you about the jukebox aspect of this game, where you could collect the soundtrack?
Yeah, sure. I thought it was kind of like it was a nice excuse to bring in tracks that aren't present in Midgar, and it was a nice way to also remix them. I found the jukebox mechanic was a bit odd in that I was surprised they didn't give you just a Walkman, so you can like pick. You'd obviously find your favorite song and listen to it as you go. But with the jukebox, it's just like, well, it's there. and then you go, well, I'm going to carry on with the story now because
Yeah.
I'm not just going to stand here listening to this music. Like,
Yeah.
and
Can I
so-
add one more?
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
No,
I know I already
can't.
added so many, but I would just like to put in the Sephiroth song,
Yeah.
which I would maybe rename Sephiroth Blue Balls. It's like
What?
they, the song starts and for like 7 minutes, the word Sephiroth is not in the song, and it's just like, oh, it's gonna come now. It's gonna come now. Okay, maybe the next time the chorus comes around, it's not there again, and then when it hits, it's like, oof, woo, that was a good one. Yeah, I love that one. No one had that same kind of.
I don't remember it. I need to
Oh my
play the
God.
game again and make sure. I wanted to say about Tomato mentioned that we have been introduced to songs for areas that we don't get to yet in the original game. So there was a Costa del Sol song that you could purchase, and I felt it was a bit weird that they were introducing us to things like that ahead of time.
I kind of didn't listen to them.
Oh, did you not?
No, I
Yeah.
was like, I just want to visit the places. Thank you very much.
It's a bit odd because, yeah, like I say, I'm not. I've listened to the tracks because they're, like you can find them on YouTube and the OST and stuff, and they're not bad arrangements. But again, I'm not going to sit in game and listen to them.
No, that's true. And also with that, do we think that they have released too much in this first part of the game? So bearing in mind things like the music that I just said, the fact that we've got loads of flashes forward and back, Sephiroth being there in the first place and having quite an integral part about 10 minutes into the game. Does anyone think that they've gone gone too far forward in some places?
I kind of did not like Sephiroth in this game, and I couldn't really tell you why. But in the original, there's always the question, like, you see flashes where he's the war hero, and in this, it's just he's a bad guy. And I was kind of confused by that. And yeah,
Sorry.
no, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to agree, but it's like very much more. They focus a lot on the Cloud Sephiroth kind of dynamic, which the OG doesn't get to that point until way later on. And at first, he is just this. The way they introduce him in the original game is very, very. It's done very well to make you be like, wow, he's just completely just wiped out Shinra single-handedly, and we haven't even seen him yet, and now we're pursuing him. Okay, so whether it's obviously quite nice foreshadowing, and there's obviously like a part of me, like the 7-year-old in me, was going, ooh, every time they brought in something that's down the line, it was very, ooh, oh yeah, that's that thing, and stuff like that. But it actually made me feel like it's in part of the very end cutscenes with a lot of the flash forwards. It kind of made me feel like they wanted to do more than Midgar, but
yeah, obviously.
higher up was actually saying, "You better not leave Midgar."
Hey, DLC.
We need more money.
Battle Pass.
Yeah, I mean,
it feels
from
like
a lot
they
of
wanted to do more.
Yeah, I was about to say, I feel that I felt personally that they have actually already started making a lot of the next part just because they've already made the areas. We've seen them in all of their cinematics. I was kind of thinking that they might have been starting on the next.
I don't feel like that at all. Like that just cinematics. The world itself has not been created, I think.
Considering, I think that one of the big ones is that there's like 3 major mechanics that are gonna be very, like, obviously the world map issue is kind of a bit of a controversial one for people. We've immediately also got Chocobo riding, catching coming up.
Mhm.
even Port Condor, which was a little real-time strategy game, mini game in itself, which I can see why they cut off there because it affords them a lot. Those are mechanics that are nowhere present in the remake so far. So I think that's where the heavy lifting for part 2 is probably going to be. Like the rest, obviously the battle engine's there, and they can just keep adding and rendering higher quality enemies from the original game. And
Would be fine with that.
Can I
what's
just
up?
quickly come back to
Yes.
when you said that if they added too much and stuff, and Sephiroth and stuff?
Mhm.
I might be assuming again because I watched Advent Children before, so I kind of knew something. But I feel like anyone who have heard about Final Fantasy, maybe Final Fantasy VII in particular, knows who Sephiroth is. Like, I feel like there's no way that you know about Final Fantasy and don't know about Sephiroth. And if he wouldn't appear as much as he would appear in this one, as a person who doesn't know the original, that he comes in too far later, I would felt kind of cheated because I was really waiting for him. I really enjoyed the final battle, and if he wasn't there, like either at all, or it would be even worse if he was just hinted at, I would just feel like they missed something big. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they just had to put him in there. There was no way.
I
they
feel like
could-
everyone knows who he is, so just
Yeah.
hiding him is
Yeah,
to no use right now. You know.
yeah,
it's-
yeah,
it's
yeah,
too late.
exactly.
Still feel
Um,
it's just he's that too much. I don't know.
Well, I mean, on that note, where do you think part 2? We're assuming they're calling it part 2. Where do you think it might end? Yeah, the next game part. Tomato, do you remember where our original game discs end?
so disc 1, I believe, ends immediately after the Gibnova life fight in the City of the Ancients,
Right.
which obviously a pretty iconic scene for everyone. The disc 2 ends literally after you've
The terrible thing that happens.
no, disc 2 ends right when you finish the Midgar raid and Hojo's shot
Oh yeah, the weapon.
energy at the shield, and you basically
crater.
the very last disc is just the final dungeon and some side content, I guess.
So how far do you think the next part will go?
Honestly, I thought they could have potentially, like I say, I feel like they wanted to do more with this part, but kind of something was holding them back, maybe those mechanics I mentioned earlier. But it could honestly, like I say, I think that they're obviously very keen on looking at reception at the moment. And if the reception to, say, the length in particular was particularly bad, they would obviously take that on board and be like, right, we can't end part 2 on the boat to Costa del Sol. That'll really annoy everyone. Let's give them a continent more or something. You know, like it. But it is Square Enix now, of course, and I think if they feel they can get away with less, they probably will. Because we're all going to keep buying Final Fantasy games, you know. Like.
When it comes to the reception and they're waiting for it, where do you feel like where are they gonna look for this reception? And like, because there's vocal minorities that are just like, oh, we hated all Final Fantasy remake, make it like the original. And then there's the other camp who's just like, no, we loved it, continue, just like take us on a new adventure. So like, where do you
variety of sources? They'll be like, I'm not in things like marketing, but they'll be looking at how many people are doing positive messages on Twitter versus negative messages. It's all part of how you kind of develop and advertise and kind of assess your product as you like. You don't just make a product and go, well, no one liked it, but we'll be making it. You go, oh, look, they didn't like these things and it sold less than it could have. We want to sell more. Yeah. And then
well, but then again, it might be like the majority would just stay quiet and they would be like, "Oh yeah, I'm interested in what happens in part 2." And then part 2 happens where they change a lot of stuff because the vocal people just didn't like it, so they change it, and now you've lost the crowd that was just okay with the game to begin with. Like I don't want to get into like how you learn these things and where do you go. I just feel like on one hand it's just a little bit weird to. I understand why they would wait for the reception, but I also feel like it can cause much more damage than it can help. It's like if they have a specific idea in their head where they want to go,
They're not sticking
just,
to
like,
their guns. I
cater-
mean,
yeah, to just cater to the people
dynamic.
that didn't like it, and just
Well, there's always
will be
that
weird.
case of there's always that case of a vocal minority. Like, there's been games in the past where there's been vocal minorities in games, and it's led to a subpar sequel, say,
Yeah.
and then it's led to even more bad reception because even more of the fans are then bitter and turn around and the makers have had to kind of reverse their decisions after the fact for the third game because no one liked the second game. Like, there's always that chance, depending on how fandom reacts and obviously how Square Enix views that and goes, "Oh, we better take this really seriously," or "Nah, let's ignore that."
Oh, sorry, Martini.
Can I go or?
Yeah.
The original game is 3 discs.
Yes.
So do we think that the remake is going to be 3 games again, or are we just
I
okay
have
with
no
2?
idea. They're going to just look at the money, obviously. I mean, it's not that hard.
I mean, if they would look at the money, they would make like 10 of them. So
indeed, and that's what
maybe
I'm
they will do
afraid
that.
of.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be 4 parts. I hope not. I hope it's going to be 2 or 3. But yeah, if it's going to keep making them loads of money, then they're just going to keep making bank. Yeah.
Well, Goose, I was going to ask, where do you think part 2 is going to end?
I think we're going to end at the scene.
Oh, really?
The one, yeah.
The one.
I think that is going to be the scene, the end of part 2. I'm just going to call it part 2. I don't know. But yeah, I feel that would be fitting because then we have even, for the new fans, we have even more build up toward the fight to Sephiroth, and it's more clear that way.
Is Sephiroth going to be in the second one at all? Or
think
do they
so.
just like gloss over him and put him into the third one?
No.
Yeah, he'll keep
I don't
coming
think
back.
So.
I think he'll be a lot more present because he is in the original game.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
For me, I personally, if I wanted to view it in a negative way, then I would have said Junon Harbor. I feel that they could easily put a lot of filler in from Midgar to Junon. So, you know, you've got the optional Fort Condor in the original that you could make not optional at that point.
Just not have it in.
Yeah, it'd be lovely if
scrap
it was out. And then you've got like, what is it? The Midgar Zolom? Is it Zolom? Before you go into the caves, they could really elongate all of that kind of stuff. And that's my negative. My hopeful is Nibelheim. I think that they'd probably go as far as that.
I'm pretty much spot on, I think. Agree.
Yeah. Do you think they'll have Yuffie?
I assume they're going to make her non-optional.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen the whole Wutai is going to play a very prominent role in this remake, as we've seen in part 1. But I think we will have everybody, like Vincent and Sid and whatever, all the other guys. But I don't know if they're going to arrive in part 2. That's the biggest question I have.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, Yuffie should. Vincent, possibly.
Well, like, let's say they ended at Nibelheim Shinra Mansion, then I think there'd be a chance they use him like Red 13, in that you see him at the very end, and then in the next one you get to play as him proper.
Yeah, that would be a smart move, yeah.
Because if we are going with our negative view of them finishing at Junon Harbour, that would be a introduce Yuffie point end.
Wow.
I don't think they would end at the harbour. I think they'd probably at least give you the boat and the Genova battle to give it a bit of look, it's a big ending. Like,
but then again, also let's talk about this ending very quickly. What the hell went on with that?
I seriously still have no idea. Like, what the hell? I was so confused with all of it.
Got a view of what they are and if they're worth our time?
There's a couple of like different theories I've read of people thinking that, like, some people say it's just like a cheap excuse for us to have a big final boss, and that the second we go into the second one, there'll be no mention of any of that. It was just an excuse because obviously they built up Sephiroth a lot. They didn't want to have a Final Fantasy VII game without that fight, so they put it in. They could not mention it at all, like going forward. Or
Can you just remind me?
Completely change everything. Who knows?
Can you just remind me when who was the last boss? Was it Sephiroth or was it the big?
It was Sephiroth himself.
You fight the big blobby thing, which is kind of a fight that's a bit reminiscent, like how your party splits up to do different things. It's a bit reminiscent of the original game final fight. And then, yeah, afterwards you fight Sephiroth in a very Advent Children setting, basically.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, didn't they even do the tunnel thing, Cloud on his own going to Sephiroth?
Yeah,
which
he did the whole Omni-Slash thing.
The original, yeah. That, to me, I was already delirious because it was 3 a.m.
Did you like really power rush through the game? Because I felt that you did, and that is why.
Well, that's one of my other questions. Is since you finished the main story, have you gone back for more?
No, but that was always my intention to do my first playthrough, and then around Christmas time, I will do another playthrough because I always
hard
say
mode.
classic mode. Maybe I'm gonna try it, but
Nothing hard.
yeah.
Tomato, have you played it?
Oh, I
Finished?
haven't actually gone back to it yet, but I know I will to try out hard mode. So
Did you get any of the extra summons,
It's brutal,
like
apparently.
Bahamut and something else?
I did all of the ones you could get in the main game, like as they kind of were provided to me. Like, what was it? Shiva, the fat chocobo. You get Ifrit from somewhere. Like, I did all that. I've not gone out of my way to do. Like, I know there's a bunch of extra stuff you can get once you've completed the game, and I haven't touched any of that.
You don't have Bahamut?
No.
Same here.
Okay, so we're gonna go to the questions that people have asked us whilst we've been yammering on for an hour and a half. And the first one was from Clues, actually, and it was, do you wish you could jump? Because I know that this is a big thing on the internet, where you can't jump in the game, and it bugs people.
I actually, a very minor thing, I hated the aerial combat in this game so much. I don't know why I know why it's there, but it's just horrible. And I do not wish for a jump button. No, I don't. I don't.
Can I, as a person
I know what you mean. Oh, sorry.
Can I? So, as a person who didn't play it, I still stand. I have an opinion that every game should have a jump button. So,
Okay.
there you go. That's
I don't think it necessarily needed a jump button per se. And I kind of agree with Goose that, like, if the aerial combat when you didn't have access to a ranged character was a bit sluggish. But the thing that really got me was it's when you do have like these obligatory jumps in the game, like you approach the spot and you press the action button, it was actually very, very slow, and you had to position Cloud right in the right spot, and then it felt very, very slow. And I actually really, whenever I saw a ladder at the end of the game, like the more ladders I saw, I started groaning because not another ladder to climb. And then I think the cherry on top of that is you get to the very top of the Shinra building, and I thought, right, big end scene, and they give you another really tall ladder. And I actually honestly laughed my ass off at that point because, ladders were slow.
And then my other question, which Shield asked us, was Red being a guest non-playable. I think we all knew that before the game came out, unless you kept it from yourself.
I didn't.
Okay.
No.
How did you feel about not being able to play as him?
Meh, I didn't really care about it that much. Didn't really mind.
He's not my favorite character.
I do.
So, and I completely appreciate there wasn't enough content really. I can see why they wouldn't code the entire character's battle and play style for just like the highway chase and.
Yeah, it's very minor.
What I found odd, and a couple of people have mentioned, is that dungeon in the middle of the Shinra building, Hojo's laboratory, which is the one dungeon you actually have Red as a support character.
Mm.
A lot of people have said that the pacing of that felt a bit out of place because you're at this point where all of the stories are coming to a head, and suddenly you're given quite a slow dungeon. But it's
the one that you have to switch.
Yeah.
Oh, and it also
really
it occurred to me that's the only. It felt like they went, "Oh no, we haven't got Red doing anything." Well, okay, he needs to do a dungeon, but we can't be bothered to do a whole character. It felt like it's like they were unsure what they wanted to do with him.
I have a better question. Will we be able to pet the dog in the second one?
He's not a dog.
He is.
He's like a Charizard dog.
Why can I pet a Charizard? Let me pet a Charizard. Like,
let me pet him.
What is this?
Let me pet him.
Doesn't like to be called a dog. We've
I
got
won't
one
call
last
him a
question
dog.
from Kale. If anyone else in chat has any questions that you want to ask us, feel free to chuck them in now. Kale asked a very nice and simple one for you. What's your favorite color of materia?
Blue.
Yeah, I probably agree.
What colors are there?
Because you like blue.
Blue, green.
Oh, wait. Purple, of course. I mean, come on.
What colors are there? Blue, green, purple,
Red,
yellow,
and
blue. That's it.
I like yellow.
And white.
I like yellow. There you go.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Question answered.
Well, I think that's it, guys. I think we've come through everything. Is there anything that you guys want to add? Do you feel like there's anything we haven't talked about?
I wanted to ask the question. Which area are you guys looking forward most towards most? Because in my opinion, like Nibelheim is the place where I want to be at. Like that stuff is super interesting, and we only had like a 10-second cutscene in Nibelheim in the remake. I just want to see more.
You mean the cowboy scene?
Yeah, the cowboy scene.
You call it 10 seconds? There was like 5 maybe at most.
On one hand, I guess original 7's so iconic that I'm probably going to really. There's the part of the child in me is going to squeal at every location because I'm going. That's that bridge you cross, and that's that bit you did that. Which the remake is really good at doing that.
Holy shit! Yeah,
having those moments. But I guess, and then whether it comes out in part 2 or 3. The city of the ancients, not the city with all the shell houses.
Yeah.
Not only is obviously there's the iconic story that takes place there, but those little shell houses, I loved those when I was a kid.
I expect them to put more into that as well, make it more of a thing than it is.
Well, there was the nice nod to them in the Shinra building. In there's a museum CGI you see, which was like a pleasant little surprise. I thought.
Yeah, that was quite nice actually. The building, the whole building, I was wondering if they were going to do it like the original where you go up each floor and you have something to do. And I was expecting when we got to the library to have to do the same library quest that we'd done in the original. So when you, like you say, Tomato, when you came to that part where you got a little sort of video of history, I thought that was really nice. I quite enjoyed it, as random as it seemed.
Well, I agree with you because I really liked that video, but at the same hand, I kind of really expected them to do that. Like they've given, like I say, there's so many details, like the Hell House, that make you kind of squeal as the inner child of you that played the original game. Words. And I was honestly surprised they didn't do things like assemble the Midgar map.
Yeah.
Even though there's a little nod to the map there, or the whole crawling through vent ducts to get those secret items, and considering the amount of like nods to the original they put in, I was honestly a bit surprised they didn't do that.
No, I was too. I agree with that. And going back to Goose's question, I think I'm looking forward to what's it called? The temple. Is it the Temple of the Ancients? You know, where it's the pyramid thing. I always forget the name of it. With all of the puzzles in there and the dragon and Sephiroth really going insane.
Puzzles.
Little birdie Nomi fella.
Yes.
Bugenhagen.
Guys. So yeah,
that
to me, I'm really looking forward to seeing. Oh, Croesus has thrown us a question at the last minute.
Ooh.
Did you guys see the picture of the Shinra employees with Shinra from Final Fantasy X-2 in it?
I didn't, but now that I know it might be there, I will probably ignore it because I don't like. My headcanon is that that's a bit of a tenuous connection that doesn't really add to the story.
I think I've heard about that X-2 reference.
In X-2, there's a character called Shinra who basically says he's going to start a company to provide the world with energy.
Oh.
And blah, 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 blah.
Which also kind of proves that Final Fantasy VII is an absolute classic of a story because they've had to keep bringing it back into other ones whenever they can. What a wonderful roundup we've just created. So there we go, guys. I think we're done for tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody in chat. Thank you, Goose, Martini, and Tomato for being our first guest speakers. I think this has gone wonderfully. I hope everyone agrees. And also thank you to Dino Keys for making this beautiful layout. Very much appreciate that. Everybody in the background that's been helping out with this, thank you very much. We're hoping to do many more. So if anybody wants to take part in any future ones, if anyone has any ideas for any future ones, let us know, and we'll see. This is it, guys. Everybody say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much.